got to pay for the materials again. And now I've got to do it again. So I've lost a day. Lost money, materials. And I've lost sanity. What a lovely day. Sun's out. Perfect for rendering. Hey, so if you remember on a previous video, I went for a carbon steel trowel. I've been looking after it. It's not rusting and it's going well, but I bloody wish I stuck to the Marshalltown. I thought I'd try the Nella just for something different because I already had a Marshalltown Permashape, and I just wish I stuck to the Marshalltown. The Nella's good, it's a nice handle, but it's just not empty. So next time, if you're thinking of staying away from something that works, just don't. Because when I use my Marshalltown Permashape, when I'm skimming, because I'm still breaking this in, it's such a nicer trowel. So if you are thinking of mixing things up, just don't do it. Stick to what works. The Marshalltown Permashape is still the best trowel for laying on with, full stop. So it's all been scratched, like we said in the first video of the series. Today we're tackling this. Then we've got to do the rest when the conservatory's up. The only thing is, they put some cavity closures in. They want me to render over that. I've never done it before. I've said to them I don't know if it'll work, but they want me to go over it. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be a learning curve for all of us here. So just going to whack this render on. I'm going to show you exactly what mix to do. Then I'll show you the process I used to get it done. And again, look at the weather. Let's talk about the mix. I've got everything ready. 5 bags of sand. Remember the last episode we did 4? Top coat is always 1 more than the scratch. You don't want the top to be stronger. It'll crack the render. Got half a bucket of lime. That's for flexibility. I'm right near the seaside. We need this flexibility. And it also makes the mix creamy, so I recommend everyone has a bit of lime. Got water, just 1 bucket for now. Got cement, and then what we're going to do, remember I cut this monstrosity of a drink up. This is a gauger, this is a 500ml can. We want 250ml of, let me find the stuff. This is a secret weapon, this is the stuff, render mix. This is what I always use for the top coat. It's got waterproofers in, and it helps workability, which means it makes the mix creamier and nicer to work with. What we want, 250ml of this. That's per bag of cement. So pour it into there. Always have the same. Always keep your mixes the same, consistent. You don't want them to be mixed up. So always have a gauger. Don't just guess it. It's not good enough. I'm going to do that with 2 hands because it's hard. So that's the mix. I'm going to mix it up in the bath and we're going to whack it on. So that's the mix, 5-to-1, half lime, render mix, 250ml per bag of cement, water. So that's it. I'm going to mix it up and I'm going to get going. Mix your render mix in the water first. Get all of it in there. You don't want any of it to go to waste. Whack it in there. Give it a good mix. That's the perfect mix. Nice, creamy, fluffy, not too thick. That's the one. First thing, wet your walls in. You don't want to render onto dry render. Whack some water on. Gives the render something to stick to. If it's too dry, it might not adhere to the scratch coat and it'll go drummy, which is not what you want. So wet it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this top bit done because it's a pain in the arse on this on this tower. And I'm going to show you the full process when I get a bit lower. So I'm going to keep wetting this in. See you in a minute. off on, a quick update, it's going off like a rocket. Putting it on and it's pulling in so hard. So I'm going to whack a lot more water. When you get to this rendering, obviously it's very sunny. We're only in March, shouldn't be that hot, but it's pulling in fast. So when it does that, hit a lot more water on the render, let it soak in, and then hit another batch of water on again, and it just gives you a bit more time. But it is pulling in fast. The joys of rendering. So let's crack on. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to tell you how to avoid problems, because you're going to watch me fail essentially. All this rendering ends up going wrong. And first thing is, you can see how dry that top right corner is. I mean, it's the comparison between the colour of the render to when I'm applying it to the section above is mad. So it has sucked in so fast. And what I've later learned is no matter how much water I've used, it wasn't enough. So first thing, avoid working if you can in direct sunlight. And the other thing, what I thought about, it was very windy. So I think we had a lot of wind, which is contributing to oxidation, which is how sand cement sets. It's not chemical, it's oxidation that forces the reaction. So avoid working in lots of wind and sun if you can. The other thing is, don't make risks. Obviously you see that I've risked working on top of cavity closures. I've never done that before. But again, you can see how wet that cavity closure is, because it's not sucking in. So don't take risks. Like I did it because I was working for the builders, they just said do it. But at the end of the day, it's your own name you're going to be working to. Just don't risk it. It's not cool. Actually, the cavity closure is held in, which was mad really. I was very surprised about that. So that wasn't why I failed on this. You will see why. I'll leave a cliffhanger. But what my point of this talking is, when I'm reeling off, this is so gritty. It's pulled in really, really fast. So during summer, it might be a wise idea to maybe put a bit more waterproofers in your mix. As you can see, it's so hard to rule off this. I'm struggling to get it back to the bead level on the right. So obviously I've got to work to the corner bead on the right side of that wall. I'm struggling to rule it off flat enough to get to that working point. That's how fast it's sucked in. So I'm going to show you a quick clip on a previous rendering video on how it should look when you are rendering. So this is me ruling off from a wall I did, a project I did a few years ago now. It's one of my early videos. I've got to be really careful not to dig my straight edge in too hard, because the render is still wet, still a lot of play. And this particular day there was no wind, I wasn't by the sea, there was no sun. So actually this was perfect condition to work in. A bit cloudy day, a bit overcast, no threat of rain. And as you can see, I'm being really careful. There's no pressure there with the rule. I'm just gently using the feather edge to rule back any high spots. So I'm not pushing in, there's no force. I'm just working bead to bead from the left side of the bead, working my way down to the right. And that's how your render should be when you're ruling. It should be nice, fluffy to work with, and still a lot of play. So that's what you want to be looking for when you're ruling render. That's what you want, and that's the conditions you want in that particular moment. I'm putting it on, and it's drying, so you haven't got time to rule it off. So when it's as hot as this, and it is pulling in as fast as this, you've got to put it on, rule it off, do it fast, because you haven't got time. That's already drying. So what I'm going to have to do is put the whole render on, finish the wall, and I have to get on top and start floating it, because it is pulling in very fast. So it could be to do with the blocks, the background we're working on. It could even be something to do with the cement or the lime we're using. Could be anything, but all you've got to do is crack on. It just means early finish. So back to the bottom end of the wall. I am rushing at this moment. I'm rushing my back out because I realise how fast it is going off. So you can see when I'm applying the render, you want to push it into the wall. And again, you always want a wet background to work on. so not wet, but you at least want it slightly damp. So the reason you put water on is so when you fix in the render to your scratch coat, it'll bite in and it's got something to grip to. But as you can see, no matter how much water I put on, it's still very, very dry. So you also want to make sure you keep your backgrounds damp, ready for when you're applying the plaster, or render, sorry. That's a big thing. So if you are going to start rendering, always make sure you work into a bit of moisture, otherwise the cement just won't grip to that key. So always make sure there's a bit of moisture in the background, and when you're applying a render, just push it tight into your scratch. That's a big thing, otherwise it can go drummy, so always avoid that. Next, we're just going to rule off. Again, I'm going to go this in the next video because I've got to do this again, but you can just see how much it's pulling there. You could add water if you wanted, but to be honest, if you are wondering if this is normal, it's not. It shouldn't be pulling in this fast, but again, it's the conditions you're working in, and sometimes it can be the block. If you're working on breeze blocks, make sure you are rapid, because it really does pull in breeze blocks. These were concrete, medium high density concrete blocks. Actually the same blocks that I used on that clip when I was ruling in, when I was showing you in a variation of it. So just avoid, if you can, rendering on breeze blocks, because it's painful. Stick to concrete blocks or brick. But yeah, if you are going to use breeze blocks, make sure you use render mesh to hold it together, because it might crack. So that's a few more tips to help avoiding you fail like I have here. I mean, let's carry on. I'm going to try and redeem myself with a power float, but you'll soon see it's useless. Right, it's dried a hell of a lot. Looks rough as bins, to be honest. So we're going to get this bad boy out. It's the secret weapon, the power float. I'm going to wet the walls up, get it back again. So I'm going to start from the top again, and you're going to see in the next clip me start in the middle, because it's hassle. So I've got to crack on. Got to be fast because that wall is dry, so I'm going to crack on with the top, so we get it. This is where you know rendering's gone wrong. You can see every area, so you've got your patches, you can see every area where I've tried to join into the next. That's because the render was just far too dry to work with. You know it's too dry when you're sponging it, it's just not bringing the aggregate to the surface. You can see I'm working the power flow with so much water. It's still not enough, so you can see where I'm trying to patch in each section into the next. You can see the joins. It's just not good enough. So if you are rendering and you see sections like that, it's not right. Really, what you want when you're floating is to float the wall in one nice fluid motion, follow the next bit after the next, and it should flow. But basically, the whole reason this wall has gone wrong, it's just dried way too fast. So your big aim is to avoid that suction from pulling in. So this is a big failure. Next clip, I'll show you how the wall should be reacting when you're floating, and I'll show you what it should look like when you are floating and sponging your render. Problem is with floating is one section might be really dry, like this edge. This bit in the middle is quite wet. What you've got to do is try and find a happy medium between the both. You don't want it too dry, you don't want it too wet. But it's got to the point now I've got to finish it, just because otherwise, if you don't do it all together, you'll get lines. So really, ideally do it at the same time. So this bit's really dry, put a bit of water on. Take a bit of fat from your float. And work towards your bead. So this is how it should be joining together. It looks almost seamless. It looks like one big area, and you know there shouldn't be any joins. There shouldn't be any divisions between the section you floated previously to this, and it should all flow into one. And that's because when you're floating, it's still at a point where it's wet enough to bind into the point next to it. So that's what you want to be looking for on that. And this is the finish you want when it's done. It should be easy to sponge, and it should again look seamless. It just looks like one big panel of render. That's what you want. Okay, so I've just gone to try and finish the wall, and it's just not worked out, to be honest. I mean, it was taking up so fast at the beginning. I mean, I was putting it on, ruling it off, and it was just pulling and tearing. But you know, I just thought I could get it, so I've left it. I've just jumped straight onto it, tried to flow it up, and it's just so dry. You know, it's not particularly a hot day. It's sunny, but it's not hot. Might be the wind, might be to do with the mix, maybe something's not right. But I've just not been able to get it. Trying to flow it up. You're doing sections and it's not sponging into it, the other part. So I've just got to do it again. Simple as that, really. I've got to try my best to float it up, to wet it up as much as I can to try and bring it back. And usually with the render mix, it helps to bring the mix back to workability, but it's just not done it. I mean, I think it took about an hour to put it on, and by the time I've gone back up again just to try and flow it up, it's just gone off. So yeah, it's an absolute ball ache, to be honest. Just shows plastering and rendering isn't always a field of dreams. It can go wrong, so I've got to go back, prepare the wall with render grip. So I've got to pay for that. I've got to pay for the materials again, and now I've got to do it again. So I've lost a day, lost money in materials, and I've lost sanity. So I'm a bit pissed off, to be honest, but you've just got to grin and bear, ain't you? I mean, it wasn't even a big wall. That's the worst bit. It's not even a big area, you know. That's why I wasn't too worried when I was filming. I wasn't stressing. I thought I could get it back, but for whatever reason, it's just pulled in so fast. I've not been able to do it. So, bit of a failure, really. I can't even put my finger on why it's done it. The mix is the same. It's not like I've tampered with the mix. The lime was a bit sticky. I don't know if I think some moisture's got to it, but again, I think I've used damp lime before. I don't know. The sun has been hitting it all day. Maybe it was just a bit too much. Maybe the blocks have stored some heat. So either way, I've got to prep it and do it again. So I was reluctant to show you this video, but there you go. I mess up too. So I will film doing it again. I'm gonna have to prepare it now. I'm not gonna do it now. I've got to go home. I've just got to go and chill out, see my baby girl. That'll make me happy. So I've got to prep it, think about how to set the beads so it'll line up with the wall below, and I've got to try and get it back to a state where I don't have to do the whole wall again. So yeah, I'll get back to you on that one. So thanks for watching. Yeah, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers. Hiya. You growing? Oh wow. Look at your legs. You growing? Hiya. Hiya. Oh. Hello.